Asia Sentinel, 28th of March 2024, in the Indian Ocean, China and India square off. China is constructing its aircraft carrier fleets to seize the Indian Ocean while launching an all-out war against the Indian subcontinent, diverting India's attention to the north. In addition to marking China's military entry into the region, a Chinese military forces delegation's visit to the Maldives, Sri Lanka, and Nepal during the second week of March also revealed a dramatic reorganization of the area's geopolitics in Beijing's favor, to the increasing detriment of India. With a growing rivalry between China and India in the Indian Ocean and New Delhi's important position in the US-led coalition aimed at containing and reversing China's dominance, this is a significant blow to hopes of becoming a major regional power. The visit came after the Maldives government ordered India to remove its troops from the island nation. China is unquestionably replacing India as the principal security ally in the Maldives. As it is, Beijing and the Maldives have already announced a military assistance agreement. The Maldives is another nation where China is the primary debtor with over 40% of its total external debt. This amounted to almost $3 billion in 2021. Maldivian President Mohamed Mutsu asked Beijing to reorganize its debt repayment during his most recent visit. This request was made in response to the president's disclosure that the nation was having trouble implementing development initiatives because we are trying to manage debt. However, the nation also revealed new agreements, the exact value of which was not made public, with China for the construction of new infrastructure, as though the debt repayment arrangement was made possible only because China was permitted to engage in new business endeavors that would ultimately bring in more money. However, China's action is not just the result of debt trap diplomacy, as the West indicates. It is primarily driven by three factors: India's rising allying with the US in the Indo-Pacific, its aspirations to claim the region as its exclusive zone of influence, and the states in the region's growing mistrust of India's pro-West geopolitics. China, however, has goals of its own that conflict with those of India and its friends outside of the region. From a Chinese point of view, the goal is to create extensive trade networks that originate in China and enable Beijing to transfer its excess industrial capacity elsewhere. It is ultimately terrible news for nations like India because the objective is to give China a disproportional geo-economic dominance along these networks. Countries that appeared firmly within the Indian nexus are slowly but steadily pulling away. Following Gotabaya Rajapaksa's overthrow in July 2022, Sri Lanka has made a more vital strategic shift toward China. India was the first nation that Gotabaya traveled to following his election victory in the 2019 presidential contest. However, after taking office as president of Sri Lanka in 2022, Ranil Wickremesinghe has worked to shift the nation's focus to China. Although Ranil was once considered pro-Western, during his final time as Prime Minister, 2016 to 2019, the West made no real investments in the nation. Even though Ranil succeeded in obtaining a $3 billion package from the IMF, China remains the country of choice for non-IMF assistance for Ranil's government rather than India. Ranil negotiated a debt restructuring agreement with China during the crisis, which is crucial since it enabled Sri Lanka to receive approval for the second tranche of an IMF-approved $2.9 billion bailout package. China still outinvests India even though India made a $4 billion offer to Sri Lanka in 2022. Modi has stated that New Delhi intends to participate in the country's energy sector. The plan to construct a $4.5 billion refinery in the southern port of Hambantota, put out by the Chinese state-owned oil company Sinopec, was authorized by Sri Lanka in late November. This is the country's most significant investment since the economic crisis in 2022. In addition to this investment footprint, China outinvests all other external entities and is the largest foreign lender in Sri Lanka. Nepal is another nation in the region where China replaces India, the Maldives, and Sri Lanka. 2 weeks ago, a significant sign appeared when KP Sharma Oli, the leader of the Communist Party of Nepal, replaced Prime Minister Pushpa Ketahal's pro-China coalition partner. China was the destination of the new foreign minister's first visit after the country's new government was formed. The new minister also doubles as the deputy prime minister. He is scheduled to meet with Chinese Communist Party officials to discuss new deals. China stands ready to work with Nepal to take this visit as an opportunity to further deliver on the essential common understandings between leaders of the two countries, deepen political mutual trust, pursue high-quality Belt and Road cooperation, expand exchanges and cooperation in various areas, and strive for new progress in building China-Nepal's strategic partnership of cooperation featuring everlasting friendship for development and prosperity, stated Lin Zhen. the spokeswoman for China's foreign ministry, in response to the impending visit. Lin also discussed the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka's impending visit, which strengthened Beijing's influence in the Indian Ocean region. These states have not, and will not, turn their backs on India in favor of China. Many will still have close relations with India, including Sri Lanka. Nevertheless, the pattern that is beginning to emerge indicates that they are consciously shifting toward a more regionally oriented geopolitics. Despite being a regional player, India's position is linked to Washington, which concerns a few of these governments due to the US's purely military involvement. The US has promoted chiefly the so-called Quadrilateral Dialogue, or Quad, as the centerpiece of its Indian Ocean involvement up to this point. Smaller governments don't always gain from agreements like the Quad, nor do they solve their primary economic problems, even though they may be necessary for nations like Japan and India, who dread China's ascent. This is a significant factor in the unease that many states in the area feel about India's geopolitical landscape. Though negotiations for a Sino-Bhutanese territorial accord started late last year, sources suggest China is pressing for a swift consensus even as India maintains its influence in nations like Bhutan and Bangladesh. Modi, the Prime Minister of India, is already in Bhutan. This visit is planned to the accord, which could potentially bring about a significant change in Bhutan's relations with China and India. Whether New Delhi can counter and stay competitive in the region remains to be seen.